Fucking wind down.
Here, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting minutes of October 24th, 2016, approval of the bills in the amount of $954,755.37, approval of the October 2016 revenue and expenditure report, concurrence with the purchase of uniforms and outerwear from Armada Printwear in the amount of $6,726.98 for the Water and Sewer Department personnel, and approval of the Michigan DEQ Community Public Water Supply Annual Fee in the amount of $5,594.20.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, we do have two proposed additions to the agenda. One would be item C1 regarding a resolution, and another would be to add a closed session to discuss negotiations with IAFF 1737. I'd propose that as item F, with item G being adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion, motion to approve the regular agenda with the aforementioned amendments.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Tominello, support by Mr. York. Is there discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next, supervisor board announcements. I do have some announcements. First, I would like to thank all of our servicemen and women who have served our country. We recognized over Veterans Day, and specifically those who were recognized and members of the community as well who came out to our Veterans Memorial Ceremony on November 5th. The event was a success as we honored and added an additional 13 names of veterans in our community to our memorial. If any Harrison Township residents who are also veterans would like to have their name added to the memorial next year, please contact the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. And as we do so often, also a big thanks to the Keene couple, Jim and Sue Keene, and also thanks to the Deputy Supervisor, Andrew Demchik, for all of his work in keeping that program going. Board members, a few weeks ago, our office applied for a DNR Community Forestry Grant. We received some good news today. I'm happy to announce we have been selected one of 15 communities to receive grant funding. We were awarded a $2,000 grant, and it's the stated purpose on the grant application was to assist with the funding to plant 18 trees near the new public art display at Crocker and Jefferson, where we have the signature sculpture. We'd consulted with Sue Keene, and she'd given a suggestion of 3 to 4 species of trees that would add color throughout the season, spring, summer, fall. I know one of them was a shagbark, beautiful trees though, smaller, lower growth trees. I will be bringing an agenda request at a future meeting to accept the grant and to provide matching funds for the grant. The match is a combination of dollars as well as labor. So there is an acknowledgement that if we plant those trees, if that's what we choose to do, we can use that as a form of match. Thanks to all of our residents who took the time to vote in our most recent election. Certainly thanks to all of those folks who worked on the election itself. The election results can be viewed on our township website, www.harrison-township.org. Results are right on the home page. If you have any questions regarding the election, you can always contact the clerk's office, 586-466-1406. Library has several events pending, www.htlibrary.org or Harrison TWP LIB is their Twitter address for more information. on all of these township events. You can always call the supervisor's office at 586-466-1445. You can visit our website at harrison-township.org and also follow us on Twitter at HarrisonTWPMI. Any other?
I just would like to say thank you again to the precinct workers. Election day, we ended up with 68.42% turnout, which is the largest of the last 3 presidential elections. It's the largest election that we've had in the past 12 years in Harrison Township. So it was a long day, but everyone put in a lot of good work, and we had a really smooth election. So thank you to everyone. I also like to thank people that came out and voted. Regardless of which way you voted, it's important to get out, and thank you.
On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, we are having our annual tree lighting, which is December 1st, which is a Thursday. Starts at 7 o'clock. We expect to have the high school band and choir there, and there should be a special guest sometime around 7:15, 7:20. And we'd like to have everybody out there. It's a good time for the kids, and there's hot chocolate and cookies, and it's worth seeing the band and choir. They're quite good. So if you get a chance, come out and see them.
Thank you. And it's a good event. But the best part for sure is when that special guest shows up and you just see kids popping out of everywhere, walking up. And I mean, I happen to be there to oftentimes give the key to Santa, but I have the best seat in the house to watch the look on those faces. That's just an awesome thing. So something I look forward to as well. Any other announcements?
Real quick, Mr. Brado and I serve on the Election Commission, and I'd like to point out the incredibly hard work that's done by Mr. Witt, and Nico Lavery and Marge Lucido. We're there to see firsthand the questions that come in. It gets hectic, and they give out such great advice, and they field the questions from all the precincts, and not only the hard work that leads up to it, but the very hectic nature of that the election day and all of what goes on. I'm very impressed and have been over the last couple of years, and I appreciate that. Please pass that along.
Yes,
Thank you.
for sure. Maybe they could use your help in the county level. You never know.
All right, any other announcements? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item B, approval of the 41B District Court 2017 budget. Board members, we've received a request for an agenda item from the folks at 41B. As you know, we've been very fortunate through the years to have an exceptionally well-managed court at 41B. Judge Carrie Fuca is here to give a presentation on that budget. Judge Fuca.
Thank you, and thanks for having us, and congratulations to those of you who've been reelected. Congratulations to those of you who've not, too. That's probably a bad thing all the time. As you can see, the budget this year, the proposed budget for 2017 is almost identical to the budget of 2016. Very little change. The management council, we have met with them, we have talked a little bit more detail with regard to the budget. They have voted unanimously in support of our proposed budget, so, of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I'm just asking for your approval of our proposed budget for 2017.
So I'm gonna assume by looking at the notes that the janitorial services, if you look on the other line, it says save 21,000. I'm gonna assume that came from page 3 because it moved to part-time. Is that what happened? Instead of doing the contractual, you,
Instead of hiring out a company, we've gone in-house with our maintenance. So it was always part-time, but now we basically cut out the middle. So we have a person who works part-time at the court as our maintenance person. Now he's overseeing the people that come in, essentially the cleaning company that now comes in and cleans. So it's, like I said, we basically cut out the middleman, which saved us quite a bit of money. We went back and forth on that quite a bit as to whether or not that would be worth a cost savings, and so far, it's been beneficial for us. We thought, having direct control over what we wanted done to the court would be better than, like, again, going through, another company with a contract. There are certain things that they have contracted to do, then we have to pay to have that done. Now we have oversight over those people. They take ownership over being there. So far, it's proven to be
That's the best part.
Yes.
All right,
Make a motion to approve the 41B District Court budget. I'm sorry, someone else
no, that's fine, for 2017.
for 2017.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, and were there any other questions or discussion? No? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'll add, as a member of that court management committee, you know, our meetings are always smooth, and we've got definitely a well-run court, and
Absolutely do.
there are funds, excess funds, historically, as you can see in the budget, that have been made available to the three communities on a you know, a prorated basis based on the number of cases we put forward. And as you know, we do use those funds to help fund the police protection in our community. So where our peers sometimes in other communities talk about the costs that are associated with having a court, we're fortunate to have just the opposite and have a source of revenue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, items C and C1. Mr. Witt?
Yes, the first resolution we have before us is a resolution for trustee capital. And
Yeah, we'll just take a minute and make sure that's working. Yeah.
think we need to get a new one.
Mm.
Yeah, it's toast. It's not even coming out.
Yeah, it must have got jarred or damaged in another group or somebody was in. All right,
A lot of static.
yeah.
The resolution reads, whereas Frank Capel has given distinguished service to Harrison Township, whereas Frank Capel served on the road committee to oversee the infrastructure of the roads in the township, and whereas Frank Capel during his tenure served as the tenure with the township served as trustee and Parks and Recreation liaison, and whereas Frank Capel always sought to advance his skills for the betterment of Harrison Township, taking classes that would expand his knowledge in the role of township trustee, and whereas Frank Capel has shown himself to be an excellent representative of the local community through his commitment and service as trustee for the Charter Township of Harrison. Now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of the residents of Harrison Township, the Board of Trustees wishes to thank Frank Capel for his service to the community and to wish him a long life, happiness, and continued success in his future endeavors.
All right,
I'll make that motion.
all right.
Support?
Got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tavanello to adopt the resolution. Discussion, board members?
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure serving with Mr. Capel for the last 8 years, and I wish him all the best. I know that Parks and Rec is certainly going to have a void.
He doesn't stop doing that just because he's not doing
all right.
trustee.
Yeah.
You heard him announce the
Well,
Christmas tree
you know, that's
lighting.
funny, I didn't hear that in the
Yeah.
resolution.
Well, I'll amend my motion to say that Mr. Capel will still be in charge of the
No.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you, Frank.
Yeah,
A little
thank
too
you.
chatty, but
Yeah.
a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, if we could keep your board comments to a minimum, that,
To a minimum.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been great.
is it appropriate that 6 members vote on that
Yeah,
resolution?
I think Mr. Capel could recuse himself from this instead of patting himself on the back too hard.
Sure. All right, well, seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkast?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on our agenda, item C1.
It's another resolution. This one is honoring Mr. Brado. I will read the resolution. Whereas David Brado has given distinguished service to Harrison Township, and whereas David Brado served on the Harrison Township Election Commission, overseeing and protecting the integrity and transparency of the election process, whereas David Brado served as board liaison on the Harrison Township Waste Service Hardship Board and the Environmental Committee, and whereas David Brado always sought to advance his skills for the betterment of Harrison Township, taking classes that would expand his knowledge in the role of township trustee, and whereas David Brado has shown himself to be an excellent representative of the local community through his commitment and service as trustee for the Charter Township of Harrison, and now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of the residents of Harrison Township, the Board of Trustees wishes to thank David Brado for his service to the community and to wish him a long life, happiness, and continued success in his future endeavors.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York, support by Mr. Capral. Any discussion?
Well, I'd like to say the same thing. Mr. Brado, it's
Thank you.
been a pleasure, last 8 years working with you.
6 years.
6 years.
6, I'm sorry,
Seems like
you're
8 though.
right. You're right. Last
filled the
6
void.
years.
Yep, and I echo that.
Thank you.
Yep,
As we all do.
sure.
Thanks.
Agreed.
Hearing no further discussion and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. York,
Yes.
Mr. Capral,
Yes.
Mr. Batanti.
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli.
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkest.
Yes, thank you. All right, next on our agenda, item D1, approval to hire temporary employee in the assessing department. Board members, one of our property appraisers is currently on short-term disability until the end of this year. In addition, the clerk in the assessing department has been working as a floater, assisting with the election, and to be followed with a much-needed break, some scheduled vacation. These two events have put us behind in performing some of the field work that's necessary in the assessing department. Article 15 of the ASME contract allows for the hiring of temporary employees for backfilling vacancies. Section 2.15 of our policies identifies an hourly rate of $12.50 per hour for basic clerical and $15.50 per hour for advanced clerical. I am asking for authorization to hire a temporary employee to assist with field work in the assessing department for no more than 200 hours, with a name to be brought back before the Board of Trustees at a future meeting. In the motion, I'm also including that that initial hire would be subject to approval of the 3 full-timers. I don't anticipate that this person would be at the $15.50 per hour position. This is likely to be someone with basic clerical skills that's primarily assisting in the field with the process of measuring and photographing properties. The only way that I would see a scenario where we might have that $15.50 is if the person were to come in and have a license as an appraiser, which again I really don't anticipate. Probably looking at a part-time person just looking for some additional earnings between now and Christmas time, something like that. Any discussion or questions or?
I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to hire a temporary employee for the assessing department at a rate of $12.50 to $15 per hour with no benefits for a maximum of 200 hours, subject to the approval of the 3 full-time officials, with a name to be brought back to the Board of Trustees at a future meeting.
All right. Is there support?
Support.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Batanti with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda, item D2, approval to change the plan administrator for our 457B savings plan from John Hancock to One America. Board members, as I'm sure you're aware, Shane Brown is our investment representative for our 457B savings plan, or basically a retirement savings plan for employees. As he might do from time to time, he recently solicited proposals from plan providers in order to see if a more favorable rate structure was available. One America offers plan administrative services at a lower rate than what we are currently paying, and they also offer several administrative services online. This would reduce liability for the township, give employees some additional privacy, and simplify the process. Their investment options are very similar to what we currently have, and therefore I recommend that we change plan providers from John Hancock to One America. You will see as a part of the backup for the board packet, there are some things that we meaning the township administration, are currently involved in. So for example, if an employee wishes to take a loan against their retirement savings plan, they come in and deal with the accounting office. if they want to make a change to beneficiaries, we end up playing a intermediary role. The company that Mr. Brown is proposing can do all of that information online, and as I mentioned, you know, in the event that there's a problem with a beneficiary change or some error on our part, there's a potential for liability. So getting out of the part of administering our employees' benefits on those private matters, such as maybe a loan on their own savings or a change to their beneficiary, is probably a good thing for the employees as well as the township. But in addition, there is a fee structure that's proposed, and it's a lower fee structure. Shane is here in the event that anybody has questions about that plan or would like to ask any questions about the proposed change. Are there any?
I guess if we're gonna ask questions now, I'm just kind of curious. You know, when we change plans like this, I note the comment that says investment options very similar. So is that part of what's considered when we do this in terms of performance over various plans?
We'll invite Shane up to address that.
Just curious.
In this case, the majority of the investments would be the exact same.
Exact
So
same.
the exact same funds are available in the new plan.
Okay.
So the way it works is that it gets mapped over. So I can see of everybody how they're invested and which mutual funds they're currently using. And most of the people I've worked together and helped them select the funds over the years. So usually it's funds that I'm recommending. So the funds that I recommend, obviously I'm going to select in the new plan. So I am going to make sure that almost all of the funds are going to be the exact same.
Right.
That they moved over.
So not just the same investment objective, but literally the same fund?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I don't remember as the structure went as points, but literally the fees, you know, the service providers, these plan providers charge a fee in the form of basically a reduction or a cost. And I know that this plan of the, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 that submitted a proposal, they were the lowest. So, and they're lower than our current administrator or plan provider. So, I mean, if we'd done this at some point in the past, everybody would have a few more dollars in their account. But in addition, we do think there's some other advantages to making the change.
And there's no cost for the transfer to us or to an employee.
Yeah, no cost, no penalty, not that I'm aware of, but I'll best that you answer that.
Yeah, there's no cost, no surrender, no penalty like that. Same thing with going forward if the township decides One America isn't what we thought it was going to be and want to move back to John Hancock or to a different plan, there's no surrender penalty keeping you at, you know, what we provide.
And the risk to the employee stays the same, because if I'm in the same fund, it really doesn't matter which provider I'm going through, it's,
Correct.
right? So there's no,
Even if the same exact fund wasn't available at the new plan, it gets mapped over in the exact same asset class. So, for example, a large cap value fund, which is filled with like AT&T, Apple, ExxonMobil, companies like this,
Right.
a mutual fund, it would be mapped over to a exact same fund, a large cap value fund at the new provider.
Right.
Does that make sense?
But in addition, within that plan, I mean, on a one-on-one basis, and we had talked about this, I think as a point of clarification, this isn't, we're not going out and saying, okay, we're making this change and pretty soon everybody's money is changed. Shane works with the employee to say, okay, well, you know, so for example, let's say Mrs. Smith has her investments in 4 funds and all 4 of those funds are in the plan. That probably is a more simple change. Maybe Mr. Jones has 3 of the 4 funds that are available, 1 fund is unique. We're not just saying, okay, we're shoving it in there. There's a customer service aspect that Mr. Brown's providing as well. So I know we talked a little bit about that, but
Yeah, that's correct. So, for the most part, it is gonna be the exact same moving over, but the biggest thing is communication when it comes to working with the employees. Because the main con, as I went through everything, I looked at all the pros, and the only con really is that maybe an employee looks at this as a negative. So it's just communication at that point. I make sure to contact the employees, let them know that, look, nothing's changing with the funds. It is a bit of a pain in the butt, 'cause now you gotta create a new username and password. But, you know, in today's day and age, that's not a huge con. And make sure they realize that this is cost savings as well, because it is significant cost savings. For whatever reason, One America comes in very favorable on the municipality side. I don't know why they're priced so favorable. I mean, I've got a couple different answers from them that made complete sense. So, you know, don't ask too many questions when you're getting a better service for cheaper costs. And it's just about communicating that appropriately to the participants.
And
What
then-
is that rate, might I ask?
Yep, the rate.
Yeah.
So I'd have to break it down on a one-off with you, but it's about $10,000 in savings overall to the plan a year.
That's not much when
No,
you're
it's not
talking, I
much.
mean, that's,
No.
like
The
a
main
drop in the
reason-
bucket,
The
to be
main
honest.
reason- It's about, on average, because it all depends on the funds that are selected, but all else equal, it's in between 20 and 25 basis points a year. So it's nothing significant, but within a participant's account, this is a very low, a very competitive plan. No one would ever beat them on price, in my opinion, in the 457 space.
And from an administrative side is where a lot of the benefit comes
That's
in.
where the benefits come.
On top of the savings is, I mean, from my personal experience in the small window, when we didn't have a finance director, the amount of administration that we had to handle in-house to handle something as simple as a loan from that plan or change in the schedule of repayment of that plan, it all takes time on our side that this plan would eliminate from an administrative stance.
So right now, it's me, you got the finance office, the accounting office, and then you have a third-party administrator, which takes care of the loans and a couple other different things. And then the plan provider. You're essentially combining the third-party administrator and the plan provider. So it streamlines a lot of that stuff. I mean, when there's a problem, they call the 800 number. They don't have to, because what happens is they call me, but it's gonna be a lot easier for me to work with them to get it done immediately versus directing them to this third-party administrator. You're combining services.
And then I think it's important to note, certainly not most of all, but there's little risk here. We're not changing the pool of risk as it pertains to the type of investments that people have. And if we find after a year's time that the administrative services don't work as smoothly as we thought, we have the opportunity to change. I think it's responsible for us from time to time to take a look at this, and when an industry, for example, a member of that financial industry says, well, we're gonna go after the municipal business, and so we're gonna have a slightly more aggressive, fee schedule, good for us, good for the employees. So, or enhanced online services, et cetera, so.
Okay, so I do have a question. You said that, it does One America, and I don't know much about One America, I'll say that. Are they trading their own mutual funds? Are they a mutual fund company themselves? Or are the asset classes gonna be opened up to, whatever, 400 or 500? You can pick whatever, Edward Jones,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? John
Yeah, it's open
Hancock, whatever.
architecture. So there's not gonna be One America mutual funds within it.
Okay.
It is going to be, for example, one of the main mutual fund companies that are within the current John Hancock plan are American funds. Most people are familiar with American funds. In the new One America, the majority of the funds are gonna be American funds. Not to be confused, so you got American funds, which is a big mutual fund company, and One America, which is the plan provider. It's open architecture. There's no One America proprietary fund within there that I'm selecting.
Okay,
If that
that was the question.
explained it bad, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said that they might move from one fund to another asset,
Yeah.
in the same, but we all know that two large caps can have very different performance,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's more than two large cap choices just within the plan, it's just,
But I thought I thought it was said that the exact same plans, for the most part, are in this other provider.
Yeah.
That was my
I'm just
original
making
question.
sure.
yeah, it's good to be thorough, yep.
Because I heard we'll just map it to another, so that's
Well,
what,
I'm just
that's why I,
explaining In general, how the process works,
Yeah.
but yes, I have the ability to select the exact same funds, so
Okay.
there's no reason to ruffle
oh,
feathers.
all right, then,
If, we don't have to, so selecting the funds, they would be the same.
All right, further discussion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the supervisor to change our plan administrator for our 457B savings plan from John Hancock to One America.
All right, for support.
Support.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Patanti with support by Mr. Brado. We had a fair amount of discussion, but I think it was appropriate. Is there further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board, and thank you, Mr. Brown. Next on the agenda, item D3, approval to solicit bids for demolition at 38901 Shoreline. Board members, at our July 11, 2016 regular board meeting, we approved the purchase of 3 properties through the tax reversion process. At that meeting, we discussed how we might sell these properties. I believe that we should structure an auction or bid process for each of the properties. 2 of the properties are vacant. 1, however, does have a residential structure on it. Our building inspector and public services director inspected the, inspected the structure. In addition, I know my office alone has been approached by several parties interested in buying the home with the purposes of, flipping it or basically, improving it and selling it. One of those parties, Michigan Home Buyers LLC, had approached me. The individual that owns this company is not someone I know. There's no personal connection. It happens that he does live in the township, and he is a licensed professional engineer, although that doesn't necessarily make him qualified. But the point is seemed like a pretty educated guy and had a little bit of experience in there. And I had indicated that we were going to visit the property and asked him if he would be interested to see the home. And he was interested. After less than 1 minute inside the structure, he was pretty quick to say that it was not a candidate for flipping or refurbishing. I'm proposing that we solicit bids for demolition with a recommendation to come back before the Board of Trustees at a future meeting. Let me expound a little bit on the subject. First and foremost, initially when we talked about this, I know that I'd said, just sell them to the adjacent property owner, meaning that seems to be the logical step. Mr. York was pretty clear in saying, hey, wait a minute, some of these properties have a little more equity than others. I do believe that on the 2 smaller vacant parcels, the most likely bidder, if we were to auction it, is the person who is adjacent to the property. However, this lot, if the home could be saved, it has a value, but even if the home cannot be saved, I was given some rough estimates of approximately $10,000 casually for people who said, well, I had this done or that done for demolition. We paid $18,000 for all 3 parcels. I think that lot alone has a value, especially with the improvements for water and sewer and so forth. That lot alone has a value greater than the $28,000 that we'd have invested. But we truly have an opportunity to clean up a poor condition. I can say I did go in. There's a couple things that make this probably make demolition the most attractive. Although this doesn't lead to demolition, it's important to note that there's probably 2 to 3 feet of debris. So I wore boots, and to walk from one room to another, you have to duck to go through doorways. There's just an incredible amount of debris inside the home. But most significant is the fact there's a 2-car attached garage, there's a base floor level, and it's a tri-level. So there's a kind of a half basement level, and then there's an upstairs level. You can't see it. I mean, you can walk around the home and you can't see it. There's a large tree that hangs over the home, but there is the building department took photographs when they went through, but there's a large hole in the roof, and it's not a recent hole. So that's led to drywall and everything that's fallen through. So what you have is water that's through a hole in the roof, through that floor, and into the basement. And the basement itself does have plumbing fixtures. So there is a shower, for example, in the basement. So the basement isn't flooded, but it's probably because whatever rainwater accumulated in there is going into our sanitary sewer system. But the walls and the floor, when you go in the basement, when you look at the floor joists from the lower level, they're soaked and dripping. Considering all those factors and considering what I believe to be an additional factor, there may be someone out there that says, you know what, I'll take that challenge. I'll buy it, and I think I can refurbish it. But we as a board have a couple of risks there. We could find ourselves in a well, let's say a fight, if you will, or a disagreement, a dispute over how much work needs to be done to restore that home. So we could sell this to someone who wants to try to restore it or refurbish it, and maybe they're taking shortcuts that we're not comfortable with. Now we're in an enforcement role. Or perhaps they take approach to where they find something that is, needs to be repaired, but they make an effort to hide it or to, deceive us. And an inspector doesn't catch something, but the guy who, might buy the home does. 1-2 years from now, mold starts to be a problem inside the home, and the third party, the person who bought it from the guy who refurbishes it, now comes back on us. So my feeling is if Mr. Axtell looked at it, and he's got experience in the building trades, our building inspector, who's leading the building department, he went through, sees no value in it, and a third party has no interest. And knowing that I see the potential for liability on our part, I say demolish it, get the lot back to its state where it's not a burden, and then go through the auction process with the other 2 parcels.
Okay, so one of the questions I have on this, first off, the liability, I don't know if we sell something to somebody, how we have liability. I guess that'd be for Mr. Huth. But more importantly, if somebody, like say Michigan Home Buyers, and I'm just using them because that's the name here.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
We'll make it ABC Company.
Yeah.
ABC Company, we can sell that property saying that the house has to be demolished, and you've been in there, I haven't. Maybe the pilings and everything, the base,
Foundation.
the foundation is good, where they can just clear the house away and do some minor on that foundation and build another house, saving the money. If we demolish it, we're probably gonna take the foundation out.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yep.
So, I don't know, I'm not a builder, but it would seem to me that if somebody wanted to build on that and the foundation is good, not saying it is or isn't, I haven't been in there, right?
Yep.
But if the foundation's good, it would seem to me that there's value in selling it and having the next person rip that house off and use the current foundation, because I'm sure that they're probably, I can't imagine poor foundations, not $10,000, $15,000, $20,000.
Yeah, so I did ask that question, both of our building inspector as well as the fellow, from Michigan Home Buyers, and it was kind of an on the fence thing. I'll say this, I understand your concern, and would there be value, and could you save that? Certainly that's a possibility. But you have other infrastructure that's a part of that basement. So literally through the floor of that basement is the plumbing of the existing, lower level bathroom. Is the drain tile, I can't even see it. You can't even see the floor.
But that's what I mean, maybe it has more value to somebody if they don't have to put a foundation in. That's
Right.
all that I'm thinking.
And-
And I'm, like I said, not a builder.
Nope, understood.
But I know if I was buying that property and the foundation was good, I'd just clear off the house, especially if there's already plumbing down in the basement, that's worth a few $1,000s.
If it has value. Again, though, and I understand, and I'm, we're discussing it. This is not
Right,
something we've encountered before, so I'm not stuck with this. But one of the things, as I thought through this, I guess just one of the things that concerns me is there's a certain kind of a property that appeals to that, to that entrepreneurial fellow who might choose to flip a home. This house is well beyond that level. And my concern is auctioning the property off, saying you have to do X, Y, and Z. I'm just concerned that I find myself where somebody says, hey, this is a great deal, I'm taking it on, and it's just flat out over their head, or at some point later, now I'm stuck and I'm saying, hey, you need to demolish it, and the guy says, I changed my mind, I want to do this, I want to do that. My concern is that, and I guess, and let me say this, we don't have to act on this tonight. I brought this forward because I truly believe this is the right thing to do. I have no problem saying, hey, let's table this, and anybody who wants to walk through it can walk through it.
Let me ask you a question.
But I can tell you, I don't think there's anything there we're saving, including the foundation, and neither of the others that went through it, saw
Is
that.
this the house that's at the corner of Shoreline and Ashland?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, you'd be better off leveling and
Well,
getting rid of the
And
foundation.
I don't,
building
yeah,
something Brand new.
yeah,
I don't know,
Because those houses that are on Ashland are real nice.
yeah.
So,
Mr. Patanzi?
What did we, isn't the property the one we paid $12,000 for?
It was, but the sum total of all three properties was
But
18.
I'm just trying to-
Yeah, but it was
so-
12,000 is what we
Right,
have
we
into
paid
this one.
$12,000 for it. And what do we think the properties, if the property were vacant, do we have any notion of what it might be worth?
A rough
Ballpark.
estimate from assessing was 40 to 50,000.
40, 50,000. So we've got
Right.
12,000 into it, and this motion is just to direct the supervisor to solicit bids.
Correct.
So if we were to approve this motion, you would come back to us and say, I've gotten a bid for X. So I would think, my recommendation is that we get a bid, then see what we'd have into it. So if it's 10,000, now I've got 22,000 into it, and if it's worth 30, I'm good with that. So my suggestion would be, I hear what Mr. York's saying, I guess I understand that, but I would say let's go ahead and get a bid to demolish it
bids,
and come back and see what our total in cost is and go from there.
And the other thing is to the extent that I can, I'd just like to see it cleaned up. I mean, it's a wreck.
I don't
You
disagree
know, None of the
with that at
neighbors are
all.
happy with it, and it's, so, but,
Well, we should
I
get
also-
these back on the market as soon as possible. I think it's the
Right.
ultimate intent.
I think if you demolish it and get rid of the foundation, there's a potential that you're gonna get a nicer property there
Exactly.
than what you would if you had the foundation existing in a smaller unit put back in.
That's a nice corner lot with a lot of nice homes on the street.
yeah, the homes all around
It'd
it
be-
are.
It would be great to see a nicer home built there.
You don't know the condition of the foundation, you don't even know if it's up to the current code.
right.
Foundations of, code has changed.
Yeah, they might need an engineer to look at it and
Yeah,
say
I
like,
mean,
yep, it's still
so-
structurally sound at that point.
And again, all we're doing here tonight is getting a quote.
Yeah.
I think that lot's probably worth 50 to 60,000 all day long.
Yeah, and I was being the last thing I wanna do is have bids come back and, but I, that number to me is conservative. The only thing about that lot that I guess you could say could potentially, maybe diminish that value is at one point, the prior owner sold the rear
Right.
portion of the lot to a neighbor, so it isn't as deep as some of the other neighboring
Right.
lots, but still a
Still-
decent sized lot, and it's
still
a nice, very
decent
nice
lot.
location. Yep.
It's in a nice area of the township.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll make a motion to direct the supervisor to solicit bids for demolition at 38901 Shoreline with a recommendation to come back for the Board of Trustees at a future board meeting.
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Witt, with support by Mr. Batanti. We discussed it a fair amount. If it's all right, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Yeah, that mic's not working, just so we know.
Well, Circle resident, there is precedent here. We had a house on Winkler that was vacant for 10 years, had 2 holes in the roof. The house went to tax reversion, was ultimately repaired. I thought the house should have been demolished for a number of reasons, but I think it's in worse shape. There's one issue with this house. It's on the corner, and I'm pretty sure that the garage encroaches into the 30-foot required side set, because it's a corner lot. I believe that lot's only 78 feet, so that limits you to, what would that be, 30 and 6? Take off 36 from 78, you got 42 feet is the maximum size. And as you pointed out, the back of the house, or the back of the lot was already sold off, so it's not quite as desirable as you think it might be. That said, I have no problem with you going out for demolition bids, but I believe that the township pays more because of the requirements we have, the criteria. We require more liability insurance, what have you. Someone that bought this house could clean it out themselves. That was a hoarder house. It was before housing at least 5 years ago. We never could get access to that house. The daughter and son quit responding to our request to appear before us. And one thing led to another, we never got in there. As far as housing was concerned, we couldn't order demolition. The law says that we couldn't order demolition until we saw the condition of the house. There is value there. I believe that probably you should at least make an effort to find if someone is interested in it before you move forward. It has been sitting there. We spent extra money to secure the house and clean up the yard sometime in the past, maybe 2 years ago. The back of the garage had a big hole in it. I believe it was boarded up. We have been keeping the yard up. I don't see any real big hurry to demolish it, but as I said, I'll reiterate, it creates a problem because it's not could still maintain that footprint, but if someone wanted to build a house there after it's cleared, they're gonna have to go to zoning board of appeals most likely to get to go in, to approach into the, side setback. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. The house directly across the street on Coleridge did go before ZBA and got quite a bit of a setback variance on Coleridge, so. But the point is that I don't see that we have any liability. I don't think the lot's worth $30,000 or $40,000 after you strip it, because it is confined on two sides, and on the other two sides you have roads, so it's not a very private lot. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Bardell.
Yeah, the mic's not working. It's
William
toast.
Bardell. Did you talk to the guy next door to see if he is interested in the lot and see if he wants to put a volleyball area up or horseshoe or hot tub? Once you strip that house out of there, you're really not gonna be able to build a house there. Like the garage is too close to the road, et cetera, et cetera. But, when you do go out for bids, I wouldn't give them a penny more than 5 Gs to tear that house down and clean it up and level it out. It's about 5 to 6 Gs to do that job number. I looked at it. It's about 5 to 6 Gs to do that job number. Ask the guy next door if he wants that for a horseshoe pit, and sell that to the guy next door for your cost, including your administration cost. And that would be your answer. Go ahead, tear that thing down, clean that blade up. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. At least the one question, did we ask the guy next door? Yeah, we did. I've actually had a conversation with the adjacent property owners for all 3 of the parcels that are involved here, and he did express an interest. I will say, though, I can't, I can't reiterate enough. I could probably, if I went back through my notes, messages, emails, I've probably had 6 different people come to see us about purchasing the home and refurbishing it. Because without seeing the inside, it looks like a good idea. And I definitely value Mr. Servial's opinion regarding this. He's soon be one of our peers on the board. And I think it's responsible for us to get some demolition bids. We'll have a chance to talk about this again. And it's likely that before this comes up, it may be that Mr. Servial would be willing to join someone from the township to go through the place. I know it'll be a lot more pleasant at 50 degrees than it was at 80 degrees to go through. And you can take a look yourself and say, hey, what do you think? But everyone that's actually been in it, before they went, this gentleman was excited. He specifically made it a point. He contacted us. He emailed me multiple times, and that's just one of, as I say, probably a half a dozen. As soon as he was in, we walked through the garage, up and into the kitchen, and he was already satisfied that it wasn't worth fixing. And once we got to the hole in the roof and the water through the walls, then he started to see some of the concerns that we had. But doesn't hurt to get some demolition bids. It's information at this point. Right. It'll back before the board. I wouldn't want the board to be confused about this. I personally still believe, as one board member, that the best course of action is to bulldoze it, clean it up, get some grass seed on there, and go about the business of seeing if we can find someone who might be interested in purchasing it. And as much as I'm hopeful that we're able to cover our expenses and then some for all 3 of these lots, if all we did was break even and get that place back to a point where it's no longer an eyesore, we've accomplished something. And back on the tax rolls, hopefully with a structure. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Batanti to direct the supervisor to solicit bids for demolition at 38901 Shoreline with a recommendation to come back before the board at a future meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is public comments. We'll open up the floor.
Well, maybe we should have them do public comment over at one of the working lights.
Oh, okay. Well,
What do you think?
thank you.
Whatever works.
William Bardell.
There you go.
Thanks.
Well, improvise.
William Bardell, 19-year resident, 37865 Point Rosa. I want to congratulate the victors on last Tuesday's election, and I want to welcome Mr. Servio and Mr. Batkins to the campus. I would also like to thank everyone who voted for me, and I want to let you know, even though if you voted for me or if you didn't vote for me, I will still be an advocate in this township for quality of life issues. And that includes water quality in the Clinton River and Lake St. Clair. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me, William Bardell, on Facebook, or you can call me at 586-610-4342.
We'll stop.
And I'd like to invite everybody to come out to Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook. And we are also working on a new website, www.savelakestclair.com. It's getting put together right now. But again, I want to congratulate the victors and welcome Mr. Servio and Mr. Batkins to campus. And thank you very much, board members and residents. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Servio, resident. I would reiterate what Mr. Bardell stated. Thanks everyone for voting, for me or for whoever you voted for. Congratulations to everyone that did make it through. Condolences to Mr. Brado. Mr. Caprell, maybe you're the smartest guy in the room. I would like to say one thing about your closed session. I was told by Mr. York today that you had a tentative agreement, that it was 3 years. That's all I know about it. And I'm not concerned about what's inside as much as I am the 3 years. It's been at least about 2 years that the fire department brought forward the idea of forming a fire district, and they've been talking to 3 other communities. There's people talking about this. Either it's dead in the water or it's still moving forward. If it's moving forward very slowly because of the fact that you have 4 different communities with different types of firefighters and different pay ranges and different pension funds. And I think you're complicating matters by going out there with a 3-year contract when if this is gonna move forward, I'm hopeful that it'll happen before the next 3 years. So I strongly urge you to reconsider the 3-year term. You know, I have no opposition to anything else, because of course I don't know what's in there, but again, please don't do 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Batkins, 27825 Lawrence Street. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Bardell, for those words, and Mr. Brado and Mr. Caprell, thank you both very much. You guys meant a lot to the community. You still mean a lot to the community, what you've done in the past and hopefully in the future. You will be greatly missed while you're not here, so thank you both very much from myself and my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. I can at least offer some information on the Mid-Macomb Fire Committee. The study was funded in part with grant dollars. The company that we hired, TriData, collectively, has done these sorts of studies in the past. What I might say is that the program manager for our particular study from TriData seemed to be qualified in the sense of his professional qualifications, and he certainly did a fine job of the data gleaning process. But I guess for lack of a better way of stating it, the product that they delivered to us so far, we're not satisfied with. And so we worked for a certain amount of time with the team that TriData presented to us, and at a certain point, we decided that we had to elevate our concerns to their superiors. There are within that report, what we believe to be an excessive amount of errors and poorly assembled information, and very little in the way of a recommendation. They are hired to not take the data that we've given them and regurgitate it, but rather to give us recommendations. So the delay is literally getting the product. That's first of all. And with an ultimate recommendation or series of recommendations from this company that would be an expert in this area. No matter what happens, we have our peers in the 3 other communities that have contracts with varying lengths, so we'll never get them all to align. And so, while I understand Mr. Serpio's residents' concerns, no matter what we do, we're definitely not. It wouldn't surprise me if we are looking at the better part of a year before we hear the results of the study. And once we do, we've got 4 communities that have to digest it, decide what they wish to do, if they wish to do anything at all. And the task before us is significant, because even if all 4 contracts for all 4 municipalities were expiring at the same time, what's the successor contract? Is it the best from each? Is it only one of the contracts? There's so many variables that the only way we'll be able to proceed with a fire district that's 6 miles wide running across the entire county will be through negotiations and concessions. So the existence of the contract won't, I don't believe, at least from what we've learned so far, won't preclude this. If the solution is to say, hey, this is great, we can get rid of 100 firefighters, those guys aren't going to be at the table. That's not going to happen. So this has to be, the result of that study has to be something that has value across the board. And if it does, then we're going to have people across the table interested in negotiating. If it doesn't, and I'm certainly not advocating for this, but then you've got a wholly different process. The existence of the contract won't preclude us from working toward a combined service. So, none of our peers in the neighboring communities have taken a different approach to their negotiations or the length of their contracts, anticipating that. And I've had those conversations, had the conversations when we were talking about renewing the chief's contract for a 3-year period. Each of the other municipal leaders said, don't worry about it, we don't see that happening. So, but it's a valid point, it's something worth considering. Any other comments?
Just like to offer my thanks to Mr. Capel and Mr. Brado for the time they've spent and the hard work they've put forth for the community, and also for their help during my learning process. They're both great to work with and helped me out quite a bit, and become friends as well. So I appreciate that and wish you the very best, and
Thanks.
certainly hope you stay involved. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I just have a few closing comments on my tenure here.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
I've saved all this time for all the years of the we should be out of here by 12 o'clock. No, I'd like to thank everybody who supported me and voted for me in the first 4 years and in the second 4 years. It's been a very interesting learning experience being on local government. I've always wanted to do it, and fortunately I had the opportunity because of the voters and friends and family that supported me. I'd also like to thank Mr. Anthony Forlini for inspiring me to at least try to run for the position. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today, and I just owe him a debt of gratitude for opening my eyes and allowing me to run for this position. Also like to thank all the other members of the first board who are no longer here, Jack Swatowski and Jan Jorgensen, Also great teachers and people to learn from. I appreciate their help and everything they did for me. The current Board of Trustees, it's been my pleasure to serve with all of you, all of us from different walks of life, able to discuss and work through topics in a civil and dignified manner. I can only hope that the next board continues the same way. I also like to point out some of the accomplishments that we were able to achieve. A single waste hauler, water tower to lower rates for residents, balanced budgets through a very difficult economic times, which is one of the reasons that I thought it important to run. New bike paths throughout the township. We weren't necessarily the ones who got the grant, but we were in charge of making sure that the paths went in and went in correctly. Improvements to the senior center parking lot and current improvements to the structure, also very critical for some of the seniors in that facility. I'd like to do a shout out to all the people that helped me with Parks and Rec, specifically Mark Nowinski, Mark Sinkowski, Kim Broski, Diana Easthope, who was a great Run Like a Mother champion, Ken Yee, who runs our volleyball league, Jerry Klein and Rhonda Klein were instrumental in some of the Hollapalooza events, and then Bernie Audie for helping us fundraise for some of the Parks and Recreation events. And also, lastly, Andrew Dimchik, appreciate all your help, especially as it pertains to Parks and Recreation. Adam, same for you. Prior to this last 4 years, you were very instrumental in that. And then Mr. Verkust, fantastic to have you as a supervisor, a great thinker, and just a great leader. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, a special thanks to my wife who supported me through all this, and happy anniversary to her. I'm a day early, but tomorrow's our anniversary.
Great. Better than a day late.
If you forgot it, I would have reminded you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to enter into closed session to discuss the negotiations with IAFF 1737.
So moved. Support.
All right, discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Take a brief recess.
Shane.
Hey, wait, that's
Rob.
Rob.